Well, hello, movie fans. How are you? And welcome back to another episode of Retro Rewind. I have a really fun show planned for today. At least I find it to be a really fun show. And so, why don't we just get at it? We'll start. So, thanks to the likes of Cameron Crowe, Amy Heckerling, and of course, John Hughes, the 80s were rife with teen comedies. Fast Times at Ridgemont High showcased teens as true young adults. The characters dealt with real life issues of the day, and those life issues I feel still resonate today as well. So I was gonna write, for example, I was gonna write family planning, but I'll just come right out with it. One of those issues in Fast Times at Ridgemont High was teenage abortion. Uh, it was also about, though, pressure to succeed in life. It was about love gained and love lost. It was about life in high school and life living in a mall, living, working, breathing in a mall, I should say. And in the 80s, that was such a big thing. Now, today, it's just outside malls that we all go hang out at. John Hughes movies, they were astute coming of age stories under the guise of comedy. What John Hughes did in many of his movies is he focused on the awkward, the outliers, so to speak, and he dealt with high school cliques, how teens grappled with day-to-day issues and pressures of getting good grades, the future, finding and falling in love, all the while dealing with the delicate transition of a teenager becoming a young adult. Many of the movies he wrote and directed are considered classics, even by today's standards. And even some of the movies that John Hughes wrote but didn't direct. This boon inspired Hollywood to make better, smarter teen movies, which was great because we had a plethora of them to go watch outside of just John Hughes movies. For example, Rob Reiner's The Sure Thing, Better Off Dead, 3 O'Clock High, and of course, the movie of which will be the focus of this episode of Retro Rewind, Just One of the Guys. So, Just One of the Guys was released by Columbia Pictures. It's actually celebrating its 35th anniversary from its release. It was released on April 26th, 1985. It was directed by Lisa Gottlieb, and it was loosely based off of William Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. Now, there wasn't much fanfare surrounding the release of the film. Columbia switched its focus at the time, and they were pushing Perfect. Perfect being a movie that starred John Travolta and Jamie Lee Curtis, and that movie had a considerably higher budget. And no offense to Just One of the Guys, but it had a major star power of the day. So they decided to push on Perfect for that. This kind of attitude in Hollywood still happens today. Working at an independent studio, you sometimes that happens. You switch focus on a movie, not that it's a good thing, to something that is a higher budget, and then the smaller, in many cases, even better movie sometimes just doesn't get the TLC that it deserves. But that didn't stop Just One of the Guys. At the end of the day, I believe Columbia Pictures, they probably felt fortunate to have released Just One of the Guys. Hear me out. The movie's budget was $5 million. Its domestic gross came up to $11.5 million estimated. And I would probably give more than take on that. So compare that to Perfect, which had a gross of $12.9 million. That's a domestic gross. against a budget of $20 million. So I'm not great at math, but even I can tell what movie made more money and had a little bit more box office clout. So Just One of the Guys is one of those teen movies that too dealt with a multitude of topics. And again, it treated its characters with respect and dignity. Some of those topics being sexism, objectifying of women, gender identity, peer pressure, conformity, and self-discovery. Again, all those topics remain very relevant to today's world, whether you're a teenager or an adult, I have to say. So Just One of the Guys, like I said, it's as topical today as it was in 1985. So before I get into the plot of Just One of the Guys, a few things that I have to square with you fine folks. There may be spoilers. I may talk about some certain scenes. And by spoilers, again, not giving away the whole movie. It is 35 years old. Hopefully at this time you've had an opportunity to watch it. If you haven't, and spoilers are something that is important to you and that it could ruin the viewing of a movie, I just ask you to put it on pause for a bit. Seek out the movie. It's available on Blu-ray. See, right here. And you can find it, I'm sure, at like on YouTube, perhaps even Amazon. I'm not sure if it's on Netflix, but find it out, watch it, come back, watch the rest of the discussion. Also, I have to be full transparency here. This podcast and my writing of my notes, I ended up going in a completely different direction than what I had intended to do. I wanted to talk not only about my fandom, but I did want to talk about how Just One of the Guys is still fits into today's world, especially with current topics of women's equality, Me Too, discrimination, and gender equality. But as I said, the movie, being 35 years old, and being those topics, I'm not shying away from them. I do believe that they're amazing topics of discussion for today. But again, the movie is 35 years old, and the director, Lisa Gottlieb, and the movie's star, the very charming Joyce Hyser Robinson, they've already done a lot of interviews to promote the fact that the Blu-ray was coming out and that it's 35 years and what the movie means today. And they discussed those topics. And to be honest, I really couldn't do a better job than what they set out to do. I really wasn't qualified, to be honest. And I read and watched their interviews, and they did a fantastic job at summing up how Just One of the Guys is relevant and fits into today's world. So what do I do? What do I do at this point? Because I really wanted to talk about this movie. I'm really a big fan, and I had such a good time watching it back when it came out. And again, to be completely open, when I first moved to Los Angeles, my early years here, it was a 4th of July. And it was the 4th of July. I needed some groceries because I was having a cookout. And I went to a Ralph's supermarket, Big Ralph's in Marina Del Rey. And as I was waiting in line to check out, who was in front of me? None other than the beautiful Joyce Hyser Robinson. I recognized her immediately, and I got all sweaty in the palms and such. And I just thought, this is going to be my only opportunity to say hello. So I did. I did it as respectfully as possible. And I said, aren't you the person in Just One of the Guys? And she gave me this sheepish smile and grin. that made my knees wobble. And had I not been using the conveyor belt, the metal part of that conveyor belt where you put your food on, I probably would have like just fallen over. She said yes. I introduced myself, told her that Just One of the Guys was one of my favorite movies. She thanked me. She was very gracious and so charming. It was just very sweet. It made my 4th of July. Those were my fireworks for the day. And again, as soon as the cashier told her to have a nice day, I'm sure she completely forgot about the incident. I did not. She was like my first quote unquote star sighting in Los Angeles. And I'm not one that gets starstruck, but that one did. So I really wanted to talk about this. And being that the movie had never been on Blu-ray, and I just got it and rewatched it. So what do I do? So I started zeroing in and thinking about teen movies in general and their evolution and what they meant in the 80s. And for some reason, I have no idea why, I started to focus heavily on Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And I was thinking about Cameron Crowe and Amy Heckerling and the cast. And then all of a sudden, it dawned on me, and like Doc Brown in a bathtub, I had my eureka moment. And I knew exactly where I was going to go. And I realized there was this uncanny connection between the two entities. So, but first, let me talk about Just One of the Guys. Let me lay down the plot to this movie before we get into that connection, because you'll need a refresher course. So Terry Griffiths, played by Joyce Hyser, has it all. She's a senior in high school. She's smart, good brain in her head, good heart, good soul, good person, great grades, very attractive. She even has a college boyfriend. Her aspiration is to become a journalist. And she currently was writing for the high school newspaper. In fact, her high school and their rival high school were having a contest in which articles would be submitted. 2 would be chosen from each school, and then the winner would go on to win a summer internship at the local Tribune. Her dream was coming true. Everything was falling into place, except her article didn't get selected. Believing that sexism was to blame, you see, the 2 articles that were chosen were written by males. She goes ahead and confronts her journalism teacher and says, well, why not me? Like, what happened? And he very honestly says, look, Terry, you're a really good writer, but your story, it's not that great. And she goes, well, if my stories aren't that great, why do you give me A's all the time? And he honestly tells her, and you believe him, he says, because you put in the work. You put in the work and you put the effort in, you work so hard, that's why. I mean, you are a good writer. It's a really nice scene there because a teacher is actually offering and giving constructive criticism to a student by saying, hey, you know what? I can't downgrade you just because I may not agree with your articles. You really are putting in the effort. And I really appreciated that up until he said, well, listen, you may not have the nose for news. And if being a journalist is really what you want to do, perhaps it wouldn't hurt to have a backup plan, like modeling. Well, that comment and all that constructive criticism did not sit well with Terry at all. So what's a girl to do to accomplish her dream and to try to show to her journalism teacher that he's wrong? She can be a good journalism. And sexism be damned. What does she do? Well, she goes to enroll at that rival high school. Basically, she goes undercover because she doesn't enter the contest as Terry Griffiths, the female, but as Terrence Griffiths, a male. So what happens then? Thinking now, if she disguises herself as a guy, she enrolls into the high school, she gets in, and for the most part, people are buying the facade. So what happens? She submits her article, and yet again, her article gets dismissed. And this time being told from that school's teacher, look, your stuff is really boring. It's like, furthermore, he goes, you do have the chops to write. You are a good writer. He goes, look, just because you're a guy, that doesn't mean you can't write with sensitivity or feeling or with heart. He goes, I'll tell you what, the deadline's not for another week. Why don't you take some time? Think about it. Come up with another article that has all of those things that I just mentioned, and you can resubmit. Well, a bit crestfallen, Terry decides to start from scratch. And as male Terry, she continues to go back to school, and she ends up learning more of high school behavior as she could have ever done as a girl. So that's basically the plot of Just One of the Guys. Now, you might be wondering, what possibly connects Just One of the Guys to Fast Times at Ridgemont High? From a pure plot point, they're completely different. Nobody's trying to win a journalism award. Nobody goes undercover into the high school to try to get this award. So from a pure plot point, as Dark Helmet says in Spaceballs, absolutely nothing. But, however, bear with me, from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, from its origins, from how it came to be, well, there is the story, and that's almost everything to Just One of the Guys. So I'm going to give you 4 examples, maybe 4.5, of how these two movies and how the origin of Fast Times at Ridgemont High and how the plot of Just One of the Guys really connect. So the first example I'm going to use, we're going to talk a little bit about Fast Times at Ridgemont High right now. As you know, the screenplay was written by Cameron Crowe. Now, it was based off of his 1981 book called Fast Times at Ridgemont High, a true story, which I have right here. So, to write his book, Cameron Crowe actually did go undercover and posed as a student at Claremont High in San Diego, California. He did this so that he could actually get the flavor, the feeling, the emotions of what true high school seniors were doing and what they were going through, and to get their beats and their language down pat. So in Just One of the Guys, Terry Griffiths goes undercover as a male, but it's undercover no less. By doing so, Terry learns what it's like to be a male going through high school. She sees being a senior through a brand new perspective, a new lens, so to speak. So right there, we have the writer of Fast Times at Ridgemont High who goes undercover to get his story. And we have the character from Just One of the Guys, the lead character, going undercover to get her story. My second example. So when Cameron Crowe went to research his book, he was already a contributing editor for like Rolling Stone magazine. In other words, he was a journalist. He'd been a journalist for a little while. In fact, Almost Famous is somewhat autobiographical. And you'll see that a little Cameron Crowe, so to speak, learning his chops to write stories. So again, the character of Terry Griffith, her dream is to be a journalist, a news journalist, a good news journalist. She goes undercover so she could submit that article so she could win. The dream and hope is to win the summer internship at the local newspaper. She wants to be a journalist. Cameron Crowe is a journalist, and he writes his book. So the third example I'm gonna put in here is Cameron Crowe again. While undercover, he befriended many of those students in Claremont and San Diego, including one, an Andy Rathbone, on whom the character Mark Ratner was loosely modeled. So if you recall in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Mark was he was the movie theater usher at the mall, and he had the crush on Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, Stacey Hamilton. Mark's, well, let's put quotes around this, friend Mike Damone tries to teach Mark how to be cool in approaching a girl and asking her out. In just one of the guys, male Terry, the male Terry, he befriends a gentleman by the name of Rick Morehouse. Terry takes Rick under her wing. I mean, you see Rick here, this good kid, kind of a wallflower, kind of low on the self-esteem and the self-confidence, stays to himself. And Terry says, hey, I want to show you and work with you because we're going to get you a date to the prom. So Terry does this by sprucing up Rick's wardrobe and self-confidence. So also it should be noted that the actual Mark Rat, the Rat, that real guy was actually pretty upset when Fast Times came out. He was Andy Rathbone. He wasn't too happy about that character of Mark so much because he felt it really didn't represent him the best. In fact, quick side note trivia: it was actually this Andy Rathbone who ordered pizza delivery into a class. But Cameron Crowe's whole thing is like, look, I didn't want to associate. He goes, I was hiding the names to protect the innocent, so to speak. So I mixed up situations, and I gave situations that may have been yours. I put them on somebody else, and I had this character do this. So ultimately, I didn't want anything to maybe come back to you that could maybe hurt you later, whatever. And as the years went on, Andy understood what Cameron Crowe was doing, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High now is very near and dear to his heart. In the movie Just One of the Guys, Rick himself, upon learning of Terry's true identity, he's a mixture of anger and confusion. He's just not happy. He feels as if for the year or for those so many months building their friendship, he felt betrayed. He really felt betrayed. And Terry was trying to tell him, again, this happened at the prom, was trying to tell him that I love you. I didn't mean to cause you any harm. This wasn't meant to do any of that. I really became attached to you. And she went on to try to tell him and want to tell him so badly that, please understand me. Listen, I really do care and love you very much. But he got very upset, and he pretty much stormed out. And they made a big spectacle at the prom night. And of course, Rick, at the end of the day, he changes his tune. And it actually leads, there's a really great scene in Just One of the Guys. It's one of my favorites. It's where Terry, as a female, goes back to her original school, having won the contest. Her journalism professor calls her over to congratulate her and to say, Terry, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was wrong about you. And Terry, being the good person that she is, said, don't sweat it, because you inspired me to work harder so that I can get and fulfill this dream of mine. And then the professor asks, or the teacher asks, hey, what happened with that guy? Like, she goes, oh, he's not talking to me. He goes, you really liked him? She goes, really? How could you tell? He goes, I read your article. I love that scene, and I'm getting emotional about it because I always love it in a teen comedy where parents aren't always assholes. We've seen a lot of them, even in John Hughes movies. A lot of the kids are driven by their parents who pressure them to do this or to go down a path. And here we have an adult who not only admits that he was wrong, he admits that her article swayed his opinion and said, finally, you wrote with emotion, and I could tell that you really care for this guy. And of course, on her first week at the local Tribune, Rick shows up and all is good. It's a happy ending. It's a very, very sweet ending. So you had these two people. You had the actual Indy from whose character was Mark Ratner in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You had him being he was the inspiration for that character. He got upset when he saw that character, and at the end of the day, he said, "You know what? You're right, Cameron Crowe, Amy Heckerling. You all did a great job. I love this movie, and I love Mark Ratner. And in this movie, the subterfuge, the betrayal that Rick once felt when he thought about it, read the article, changed his mind, and he says, "You know what, Terry? I love you too." It's really sweet. It's really great. So now I'm going to go into my fourth. Example here. So Terry Griffiths and Cameron Crowe have something in common. So the character of Terry, the real life Cameron Crowe, they share unisex names. Like this, again, I think of this and it's just crazy coincidence. So Cameron, as you know, could be a male, Cameron Crowe, Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, of course, and we have the lovely actress Cameron Diaz. So Terry could be a female name. It could be, we have Terry Bradshaw, we have female Terry Garr, Terry Farrell. And just because I have to get a Jaws reference in there, the doomed water skier in Jaws 2, she was named Terry as well. So they share unisex names, which again is kind of crazy to me. All of these coincidences from the genesis of Fast Times at Ridgemont High to what just one of the guys became. These are connections that, I don't know, to me, they're undisputable. And to be candid here, too, I just want to be upfront with this. There's nothing that states one movie was influenced by or was influenced the other movie. In fact, as I said, many of the articles and even the interviews that were done, William Shakespeare's Twelfth Night is the movie that they say this Just One of the Guys is based off of. So I came across this considerable connection on my own, and I found the parallels to be fascinating. And I wanted it to be fun to talk about. So I hope you did too. I also hope that inspires you to go and watch Just One of the Guys again, and to go watch its unofficial companion piece, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Hell, who knows? Maybe it'll inspire you to read too and get the book Fast Times at Ridgemont High, A True Story by Cameron Crowe. Both movies, aside from them being extraordinarily entertaining, they are movies that treat their characters with dignity, smarts, and charm. And that is the heart. Teen comedies have to have heart. For me, in order for them to work, they have to have some semblance of heart. I have to find a relatability. It didn't matter that 16 Candles main character was a girl. You still, as a male, you understood, because any teenager at that time would have really hated for their parents and family to forget their 16th birthday, right? And just one of the guys, Terry Griffiths, you understand where she's coming from. And even as a male, I get the hurt of trying to obtain a dream and having somebody tell you you can't do it. And then you just fight back hard. And the kids in all of these movies, including just one of the guys, even her girl crazed brother, 15-year-old brother, Buddy, like, he's a good kid. The kids in there, like, they have good hearts. They have good intentions. And those, to me, no matter what crazy situation they get involved in, you want to root and cheer for them. And just one of the guys has that, has a lot of it to go around. And that's why it really is and was one of my favorite comedies of the 80s. I hope you think so too. I wanted to also thank you as I'm wrapping things up here. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope it gave you something to think about. I hope that maybe, like, you'll look at Fast Times at Ridgemont High and what Cameron Crowe went through to get the book written, and then he was off and running after that movie, and he became for a while there, Cameron Crowe. He was a Hollywood wonderkin for a little bit. Like to see more of him. Another Cameron Crowe thing to check out is he does an interview with Billy Wilder, which is actually very fascinating. And Terry Hyser, I wish her nothing but the best. She's had quite the career. And again, she made a movie that I think endures. It stands the test of time, and it'll still stand the test of time for the next 35 years and beyond. So I thank just one of the guys for coming out on Blu-ray so that I can watch it. I only wish there were more special features on it. I wanted behind the scenes and I wanted more interviews. But other than that, it was just great to have it because it's the first time on Blu-ray. Get it. You can get it on Amazon. It's at a really good price. So I want to thank you again for clicking in. Tune in. I got more ideas for older films, for retro rewind here. I appreciate you tuning me in. I appreciate your audience. I appreciate you as film fans and as people. Thank you kindly. Until next time, I will see you at my Blu-ray shelf. Bye-bye.